Welcome to Harder Than It Looks, Parking Uncovered, a podcast that illuminates real solutions to common problems within the parking industry. I'm your host, Brian Wolff, CEO of Parker Technology, and in each episode, I'll introduce you to real parking pros that will bring their own tips, tricks, and best practices to manage what we all know is harder than it looks, parking a car. On the show today is Jake Miller. Jake Miller is a technologist and executive leader with 25 years of hands-on engineering experience, spanning large-scale platforms and early-stage product building. He led engineering at ExactTarget Salesforce Marketing Cloud, helping build Journey Builder into a multi-billion-dollar product line, and has helped dozens of startups go from idea to in-market product across SaaS, enterprise, and PE-backed environments. Today, Jake is co-founder and CEO of ZIVIS, where he's building the next generation of AI trust and security for real-world systems and organizations. Jake, welcome to Harder Than It Looks.
Thanks. Nice to see you, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be a good show. So we're gonna get into something that I think a lot of parking and mobility operators are feeling, but maybe can't quite articulate yet. This shift from software you manage to intelligence that just works around you. And so more importantly, what it takes to trust it. And I know you're gaining expertise as on the front edge of AI every day. So Jake has spent his career building things at scale and breaking them before anyone else can. So this should be a good conversation. So Jake, what I'd like to do is I'd like to hand my guests the mic, tell them they can go back as far as they want to go, and tell us how you got from place to place. You've done some really interesting things. So please make sure you include how you and Karen Mangia connected, because Karen is going to do day one of Fusion, and then you'll have day two. So it's was a little serendipitous. I'm not sure I knew that before we set it up, but I think it's going to be a perfect setup. So yeah, I'm handing you the mic. Go back as far as you want to go and just tell us Jake Miller's story.
Sounds great. Yeah, when I saw Karen's name as a keynote speaker, I immediately picked up the phone and sent her a text message and said, "Hey, the gang's back together."
Yeah.
So yeah, my background, you mentioned it at the beginning of the call, but I'm a software engineer through and through. Started out in high school. I actually started in computer networking. So I went through a Cisco certification training. I worked for the city of Greenwood for an internship and helped them with subnetting their networks, just fun stuff like that. And then I got into software development because of the .com boom. We all know that story, and just worked my way from small projects into big platforms. So I like to say to folks, I'm a systems thinker. One of the stories I remember way back, even as a kid, I was always fascinated by the school bus system, because it's a system that it's predefined. The buses go out, they have their specific stops, they meet at the school, then a specific time at the end of the day, they take everyone through that loop, and that's way cleaner than it actually probably works. But to a 10-year-old's brain, that's cool. And that's really just gone throughout my whole career and thinking of things in terms of systems. And so I spent time at IU Health in India in revenue cycle services. So I have experience in healthcare, PHI, patient registration information, that sort of thing. The ExactTarget story, which I won't go too deep into because I think everyone knows that story with Journey Builder. And then fast forward, I'll spare you all the gory details between then and the Engineered Innovation Group. But EIG, my prior company, the whole spirit of EIG was to help startup. So when I was at Meta CX, now Meta Impact, I was advising other startups at the time, other CTOs, on how to think about your technology, how to not scope creep, how to take technology and put it into practical business terms, and found a lot of passion in helping folks do that. And so what I did from there is I said, is there a business here? I'm not trying to be a venture studio. I'm not trying to be an accelerator, literally trying to help folks take that idea, nail it down, build it, get it into market, and paying customers in the shortest period as possible. And we proved that model could work. So whereas venture studios very often are providing things like back office functions, design services up front, EIG, we were providing product design engineering, but we were the company, basically outsourcing software building.
Yeah.
And Karen joined me a couple years into that journey, and she joined running our customer success and strategy initiatives as we grew and expanded. So I think at the end of the day, at that point in time, we had helped about 30 startups go from an idea into market. Some have been wildly successful. The startup world, not all of them have the luxury of existing more than 5 years,
Yeah.
but it was a fun run, and yeah, it was great.
Yeah. Okay. So now we'll get into ZIVIS a little bit later because we're gonna talk a lot about all of the concepts, and now even the bus story and the systems thinking makes starts to bring your approach into focus for sure. Okay, so you started in software and you've really transitioned hard to AI, right? And so I'm wondering, what's it take to make that transition? Like, how does your mindset change, and or what kind of skills and tools do you need to upgrade in order to get there?
Yeah, love this question. One thing I left out in my bio was, so I studied English in college. So rather than go study computer science, I started the computer science program. I was fairly bored because I'd already learned a lot of not just the skills, but the principles and concepts.
Yeah.
And I said, what can I do instead that will help me be more well-rounded and competitive in the marketplace? And that was a liberal arts degree. So where that went was I found this really interesting thing called linguistics, which is the study of language, or I like to think of it as the science of language. And I did not think at that time, fast forward 25-ish years, that, oh, wow, that is, how do I say it? The way that I was expecting for linguistics to re-enter my life was through a PhD program. It was not through this thing called generative AI.
Mm.
It's actually, this is really funny. It's actually funny you mention it. I have this book called Linguistics for the Age of AI. I was just like going from, I literally did not put this on my desk because of this conversation. I ran into it off my shelf yesterday and it's like, this is from 2021. It's going to be very interesting to see how that held up since generative AI just the past couple of years. But anyway, to get back to your original question, which is how do you go from software engineering into this world of AI? And I think it's the natural evolution, structured thinking to unbounded thinking. And what I mean by that is the tie between software engineering and artificial intelligence, for me, truly is just an unlock of a new level of computer interaction. So human computer interaction.
Okay.
And I don't know, are you a Star Trek fan?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
When I first had a conversation with ChatGPT, I was like, oh my gosh, I am Captain Picard or Captain Janeway telling and dictating to the computer very complex tasks I want it to complete. It is completing those tasks and it's coming back to me and I'm collaborating with it just like you would on Star Trek Enterprise.
Yes.
And that's a very different world than what we've all been taught way back when with in the 80s, like the mouse clicks, right? We've all have it beat into our brains. The way you interact with the computer is you type something in, you click a button on the screen. And yes, we still do that. That's how we are chatting. But what I'm seeing less of is I have to use a spreadsheet to do that, or I have to go pay for this SaaS tool to do that, and more computer, I just need you to send this calendar invite and negotiate a time to meet these people. So it's becoming way more of a natural interaction, blurring that line. And so bring it all around, linguistics training and computer software are really the same thing to me for what it's worth. I think maybe you're getting to more practical. Maybe you tell me like more practical, like what does AI mean?
Yeah.
Here.
So again, where you're taking me now is my brain's ability to decouple what I knew yesterday with what's possible tomorrow. And it's interesting. This just popped into my head because you talked about Excel. It always fascinates me that you can sit in a room with people and you can watch somebody manipulate Excel and they'll show you a different way to do the same thing that you've been doing, adding columns or adding numbers and all of this thing. You click and all of that. And I think the same thing is happening. What made me think of that is the same thing is happening as I'm watching James and I'm watching others use AI. I'm like, oh, of course you can do that. but I am literally limiting myself. And I think we're all limiting ourselves because we're stuck to the old models, and the rate and pace it's going to continue to accelerate now because we'll be like, oh, can it do this? And the answer is yes, it can.
Yeah.
So the ability to unlock it faster and faster, I think, is going to be one of the keys. And your ability to help my audience in July grasp that in
Yeah.
tangible ways is going to be one of the most powerful things, I think.
Yeah. I'll give you a very concrete example. I was talking to someone the other day. It was actually an introduction from Karen. And for me, it's a very straightforward problem that she has, this particular person I was talking to. And she said, I'm trying to figure out how to make my business run more smoothly so I can focus on the actual value that we provide. Because the value, and I think we all can relate with this,
Yeah.
writing emails, taking information from the email and putting it into your ERP or order forms, writing SOPs, building the statement of work, like all that's just the stuff that's busy work. It has to be done. And if you don't get that SOW out, you're not going to get the deal. But the way that she was thinking about it was, I need to buy this thing here and I buy that thing here. And I drop this file into Airtable. And then I have an integration that extracts that and then puts it into QuickBooks. And I was like, wait a minute. Think about it differently. You don't have to go buy all those systems. We can put all the data in one spot and you can have a conversation about it and tell it what you want to output where. And you're changing the model from I need a tool that does everything and I need to stitch together to it's just data. I just have a conversation and it's the system to do what I need. That's not to say you're not going to buy products and stitch them together. That still happens, but the need for that is going to be less and less and less over time.
Yeah. So that's the risk to the SaaS models at this point.
That's right. That's right.
So you just throw it in one place and interact with it. Okay. That's good. I'm still a little stuck on the linguistics. I want to hear one click deeper on how the linguistics is helping you today with ZIVIS.
Yeah. So I think it is this word unbounded is used. I don't know if you're hearing it a lot, or non-deterministic is being used a lot. And
hearing that a lot.
It's accurate to use. It's probably the best two words we have to explain what's happening right now. And so the reason linguistics is so valuable to me is it's helping me unlock just a mental model for how I'm writing code and interacting with systems. It's talking about here. But this really segues into the security conversation where it used to be, you have a port on some network, you lock it down, you test it work or not. Yes or no? Very clear answer to that question.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden we're able to build systems that truly are just language based. How do you lock something down that by its nature cannot be locked down? And all of a sudden you've changed the security conversation from something that's finite or measurable or deterministic to maybe.
Yeah.
That's where I'm starting to see.
Yeah. The linguistics kick in. Okay.
Let me add one more to it as well, because I think there are multiple facets to this. The other is, I tell folks with liberal arts degrees, now is your time to shine.
Yeah.
Because we need people that are able to interpret, and garbage out still applies.
Yes.
And that is a skill set that I think is very valuable in this new world of trying to work with this technology. So if you say, and I do believe if this isn't happening, folks will start to see it happening in their organization, you're going to have a team. It's going to be a digital team. And for every human, you're going to have 5 or 10 digital agents, whatever you want to call them. Someone needs to manage them. That is a human with liberal art capacity or critical thinking, problem solving skills that's going to have to do that. You're not going to have to go crunch the numbers, but you're going to have to understand what input do I need to provide? What outcomes do I expect? And how am I going to hold it accountable when it produces those answers, so that there is going to be someone's throat to strangle, it's going to be mine, but I'm managing that system. And that's the world we're moving to. And I think people also talk like, what are the new jobs that are going to come out of it? The irony is, I think it's going to be a lot of management.
Yeah. There's an orchestration layer.
Orchestration.
And I think the other thing, James and I have gone back and forth on this a couple of times. James Payton, by the way, for podcast listeners, our chief technology or chief product officer. James and I go back and forth about this a lot. I saw Christian Anderson posted sometime about the concept of taste. And it seems like taste is going to be even more important in the AI age because the AI agents will crank out a bunch of stuff. Some of it's good, some of it's not good. And it's going to have to be someone with taste or with discernment who figures out which direction to go as a result of the output from the agents. So so you might riff on that just for a second, because I suspect that's a big part of your job now, especially on the security side, because there's just so many different ways you could go to lock things down or to make things safer.
Yeah. The human in the loop concept, again, is overused, but it's very true.
Yeah.
That's part of the purpose. On the topic of taste, what comes to mind immediately for me is my spouse is working on a new branding of a product that he's wanting to launch. And I said, go riff with ChatGPT and just figure out a brand identity and come up with some ideas, spit out some logos, whatever it is. Now, what I'm not recommending is to use the hooks verbatim, but like you said, there has to be taste. In this case, visual taste. I think it's easier to think about taste in terms of like visualization or product. But there's judgment is actually probably a different word. I would. There's judgment that has to be passed. I'm trying to bring that around to the security angle there, because a lot of the way I work with AI, I'm sitting here, I have 4 32-inch monitors that all have 4 desktops of their own with AI agents running right now. Like, I'm working.
Yes. You're orchestrating while you're talking.
You're working. Yes. I've orchestrated the work. But I don't know what, actually, I'm going to throw it back at you for a second to help me think through this a little bit. Because I do love this idea of taste, and I do think it's very true. But what is it bringing to mind for you that maybe I can riff on?
I think what struck the chord with me is back to the liberal arts degrees and the managerial skills or the judgment skills and the ability to influence people or to organize people is your ability to do the same thing with agents. But these agents are cranking out stuff. It's back to what you just told your spouse. You may not take any of it verbatim. You're going to have to take what it cranked out. I do this almost every day because the large language models are still not very good at hitting my brand standards. Yeah. So you got to tweak it and you've got to move things around. You can't just take the output. And so the taste piece of it is what is good. And I'm still going to be judged for my ability to present good, regardless of where it originated or who did the work, because it's going to be my work. I'm going to put it out into the world. And whether it was ChatGPT or Claude or whomever, it's still my work, at least for now. Maybe that'll change later. And so it's the taste, it's the discernment, it's the refining that actually makes that product better. Right? Sort of the BASF. We're going to make it better. We don't make the things, we just make them better. So.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting you say that. When I've scrolled on LinkedIn, I haven't seen this much lately, but there for a while, every other LinkedIn post was someone complaining about someone using AI to write a LinkedIn post.
Yes.
And from my perspective, I was like, really? That's what we're spending our time on, is arguing about like the product. It's the outcome, just like business, right? What is the outcome you're trying to achieve? And did we achieve it or not? And is it achieved at the level of quality that you would expect or not? Because some people are using AI to generate content and it's great content. Others are using it and it's not great content. Guess what? Not the tool that's the problem. It's the person in the chair that is or is not the problem.
Yeah.
To your point, it's discernment. I love that word, discernment.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. So I'm going to get you back into your swim lane because we're going to talk about ambient intelligence. So I can't wait to get your perspective on this, because I think what's happening is we're going from dashboards and analytics to the information is everywhere. And so in your mind, what does ambient workflow actually look like in practice? And give us a picture for how someone in parking and mobility might use ambient workflow versus the traditional dashboards or analytics.
This is what ambient workflow means. And I don't know if I created this or I think it's actually an industry term. So what ambient workflow is referring to is the idea that we're moving from, basically I was explaining earlier, click a button, you type in a form, you have some lists that's predefined, you have a spreadsheet that you're using and you're updating it, whatever cadence with the financial aids, or maybe there's scripts that are running and such. Two, and actually, this is what I was describing earlier with this individual that I was working with, that why do I need to go build a spreadsheet for something to view those visuals when I can just say, I need to know today at this point in time, what is the trend for our sales on some product?
Yeah.
And the ability for me to just interact with it as though the technology, as though it's another person with me, that's an expert and sidekick, is very different than, again, we were talking about this earlier. It's very different than, oh, I have web forms I'm going to go click into and spreadsheets to work through. So I think that's what we're talking about with ambient workflow.
Yeah. Yep. I think you're right. Okay. So from a parking perspective, the data's out there. And today, one of the hardest things for any parking operator to do is to manage. They've got 10 different types of systems. So think of it like you're getting car data from a Chevy, a Ford, a Maserati, Lexus, Camry, a Honda, right? And they've got all of these different types of parking operations, access control devices, and they're ultimately trying to get it in one place and make sense of it, because their operation is aggregating it at the top, and they're spending lots and lots of time, lots of effort getting those systems into a single repository, data warehouse, a data lake, whatever it is, so that they can report on it. I wonder if this ambient workflow or this ambient intelligence won't be helpful to them, because then they can just drop it in, and the way that they'll interact with it is to talk to it or to ask it to do things for you agentically.
Yeah. It's funny as this goes back to discernment. There's one approach that is, we take all the data, we clean all the data, we put it into our data warehouse. And this is what you were just outlining, like this is how we do it today.
Yeah.
Data engineer takes data, they sanitize the data, they put it into data cubes, data warehouse, and it's in a system where now you have dashboards that you're pulling up. You can click on, someone pre-built, predefined those. Maybe it's super cool where you can like click on animations and slice and dice the way you want, probably because it's data warehouse. Okay, that's one. The second phase after that is, okay, now we want to take all the data and throw it into a data warehouse. But at this point, we're not going to go sanitize and clean it. Now we're just going to let you naturally ask questions about it.
Yeah.
Which, a little nuance there, but this is where discernment comes in, because why go spend all, you probably will have some listeners that would be like, Jake, what the heck are you talking about? But bear with me. What about the world where if I can discern what is junk, what's noise, what feels right, what doesn't, and I can work with a system in natural language to say, wait a minute, that number doesn't sound about right. Explain yourself. And the system can say, oh, I did it because X, Y, and Z. And I say, that's wrong. Actually, last month we had this big problem where there was this event that let out and it caused a big backup in the garage. You need to take that into account. What does that then do to affect the numbers? Now, all of a sudden, you've taken the data engineer that had to go massage the data and lose some fidelity because they may not have known that.
Yeah.
You put it right back in the driver's hands, pun intended.
Yeah.
So I think there's an opportunity there, but you're right, from earlier in our conversation, there has to be a shift from the old way of you build a data warehouse, and you have the data pre-structured so you can see it, to training individuals so they know how to have that discernment or that critical thinking to know that number is accurate or not based on what I know.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I'm trying to think about how to lead you down a path to help those that are listening, because they're all parking people generally, unless they're your fans, then that may outnumber my parking people, but pragmatic ways to get a start at it, because I'm sure everybody is feeling the pressure to at least dip their toe in the water. They're getting pressured to use AI because they know there's the tool out there, or they genuinely, like us, we're all in on AI, but sometimes you need a shove, right? So give us your thoughts around a starting place.
The starting place. The best starting place from my perspective is your inbox. You're in it every day.
Yes.
No one likes doing it. It's mundane. You typically need to work with five more plus systems because you got to take information from there and put it somewhere else. You got to look up, wait a minute, did I actually say that? Or did I come up with the term ambient information workflow?
Yes.
You like all those like micro interactions. You look at your inbox, and if you look at it through the perspective, it might take a little bit of training of yourself at first to say, wait a minute, do I really need to go do it there? Or can I talk to Gemini, which is right in my inbox? Work with Gemini.
Yes.
You have to be willing to explore and be curious.
Yeah.
Because if you're not going to try, you're not going to find ways to make your life easier. But those are like the micro steps to get you in to how you might be able to solve a problem. And then you're going to learn from there a series of steps. So now not only am I using it now to make sure my calendar is always clear on Friday afternoons, I have a automation that after every phone call, and I record all my phone calls, the transcripts are pulled in, they get put in HubSpot if it's a customer. But that way, when I'm working inside my email system and something comes up from a prospect or customer, and gosh, I don't remember what exactly the problem was I was trying to solve, but whatever it happens to be, I'm going to ask Gemini. Gemini now has access to all my recordings, to my historical emails, other team members of mine in HubSpot. So it has all of that context, and it makes it a lot easier just to answer a question, write a response, draft email, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's again, I don't have to go to 15 systems to do something. I can do it in spot.
Okay. So I'm asking this question selfishly. Hopefully everybody else is thinking the same thing. How do I trust Gemini at the end of the day? Yeah. How do I trust Gemini?
So it depends on what you mean by trust. Do you mean you trust it to keep your data safe, or do you mean trust that its answers are accurate?
I think I can see, back to discernment, I'm not worried about accurate. I'm worried about just being naive and ignorant about letting that stuff go, because I had a visceral reaction to, you're like, I just let Gemini see all of my stuff. And I'm like, ooh, okay. If I let Gemini see all my stuff, then can everybody else that can see Gemini see my stuff? And like, how do I keep it safe?
That's a great question. Couple things. I am a power user.
Yeah.
Permission sets are your friend.
Yeah.
If you're working with Gemini and Google Workspace, this gets into the boring stuff, I think, but depends on like your subscription, right? Like who's running your IT? What subscriptions are you on? So if you are on, for example, if you have an employee that's just using their personal chat GPT and they're copy and pasting files in, that's a very big problem. Do not do that, and make sure you have policies that say employees cannot do that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to something like a Gemini, and I'm using Gemini just as the example, but there are other like Anthropics but Gemini, there are specific rules and policies that they have in place based on the paid subscription plan you have. So for example, I have Business Pro Plus, whatever that version is, right? For the company my size. But I'm guaranteed that it is sandboxed as an organization, and also that the records that I have cannot be accessed by other folks unless I've explicitly given them access to it. So you are right. There is a level of trust and the provider that you have to have,
Yeah.
and whether it's doing what they say it will do. But from my perspective, it's more about, am I managing my own permission boundaries rather than I'm concerned about their model doing something wrong.
Yeah. Okay. So you've described it in a couple of different places, right? So you've got your personal approach to it, but then you've got a corporate approach to it where they're allowing you to segment it away from everything else and keep it safe. I'm sure I'm sounding like a 101 guy.
Oh, you're exactly right. It comes down to, it's just data tenancy and data privacy.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe just a little bit of a shift as we try and head towards the work that you're doing at ZIVIS. So talk about your perspective on someone who's trying to build AI native versus an existing company, even a little bit like Parker, where we've got this corpus of really interesting information, and we are attempting now to bolt AI into it to make it more useful, both to the CSRs and ultimately to our customers. Is there a better way to do it? Or is there a best way to do it? Or what's your perspective on AI native versus sort of bolt on?
I talked to several folks that have told me, Jake, AI is great when it's a new company because you get to start from scratch.
Yep.
So AI is wonderful. And this really matter what the industry is. Software is obviously, from my perspective, probably the most common. And I said, wait a minute, you actually, if you're an existing company, you have a massive advantage. But our data is in complete disarray. It doesn't make any sense. It's all over the place. We have to clean it all up. Exactly. But you have it.
Yeah.
So, for example, there was someone I was showing my workflow to yesterday, and he asked the question, I'm trying to write requirements document for the work I want to have Claude for me, my AI do for me. And we've been around for 10 years, and our data and our code, it's all a mess. And so how should I write that PRD? And I said, don't write it. Reverse engineer it. Go to your data and say, I need a modern version of this. Output how it works today. Give me variations on how I might be able to improve that, and then go build it. So it's a mindset shift from, I have to go define this thing to have it built, to what are the patterns that already are embedded in my processes and my data, and extract that, and probably actually get better outputs.
Yep. Yeah. So I can already tell I may try and put my thumb on the scale for your talk in July and get to, or at least plant a seed with you about the mind shift change, right? You are describing old world versus new world, and the new world is very liberating because it can actually help you work your way out of the problem. You don't actually have to hire a bunch of consultants that you can actually work your way out of it if you can figure out, or if you just allow yourself just to think about it a little bit differently.
Yeah, differently.
Oh,
Someone mentioned, I think it was IBM, published an article recently about how they no longer need COBOL programmers. There's plenty of code out there that needed COBOL still. There weren't very many COBOL programmers. By the way, I did learn COBOL. But the point is, it doesn't matter. You could just ask AI to write the program and modernize it from COBOL to whatever language you want. It was the same vein with this individual I was talking to yesterday. It was like, oh, we're using this obscure version of this and this obscure version of that. And it's great. Tell the computing machine that you don't want to use that anymore, and it will not use it anymore.
Yep. Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, then let's transition to the work that you're doing at ZIVIS, and an opportunity for us to dig in. So we've talked a lot about trust, not necessarily as a feature or checkbox, but as a continuous operating system. And I'm wondering, just keep going on that, expound upon that concept of you talked about, it's no longer securing the port. It's about thinking about it holistically and thinking about it dynamically, I think is probably a key piece to your approach.
That's absolutely right. So first of all, when folks tend to think of trust, especially from a cybersecurity software perspective, what comes to mind is what you said, security. Are my
Yep.
ports locked down? Is my network safe? That sort of thing. And yes, that's true. The second that comes to mind is governance. But in this world of AI, I have a strong perspective, and our company at ZIVIS has a strong perspective that it goes well beyond that. It goes to things like workforce education, brand integrity. So it's more than just, is the thing secure? And it's more, are we being ethical in our use of how we harness the technology? Are we keeping people in the loop? And regardless of what your answer is, can you at least prove it? The way pen tests, I'm going to use this just because it's easy to understand. So every company that has any sort of technology, that has any sort of compliance or certification or attestation, has to go through a pen test. And the way that has worked in the past is once a year, you pay a firm, and they come in, a third party, tries to break your system. You get a nice long list of things that were broken. Your team fixes it. They come back and they remediate it. Your auditors come back and say, okay, you fixed it or you didn't, you're good to go. Stamp, we'll talk to you in a year. With conventional tech, still didn't work, but fine. Okay, it worked.
Yeah.
With AI, it absolutely does not work. And it goes back to very earlier in this conversation where we started talking about unbounded and non-deterministic technology, where one word change and how you have and what you have in a prompt can dramatically change the output of your system. So how do you protect yourself in your system and ensure things are secure if a single word change can modify it, right? It's different than just saying I'm going to change a port. And so from our perspective, it is, you have to be testing continuously, ongoing. And I'm talking security right now because it's the easiest, most tangible thing for folks to understand. But I'm sure are you familiar with prompt injection in AI?
Yep. Sure.
Yeah. It's probably the one vulnerability class most folks are aware of. And for those that don't know, it's this idea that I can inject instructions into a chat prompt and convince the large language model or the LLM to do things it probably shouldn't do. Hey, I want to get out of parking garage for free. Right. And the system that someone may have wrote would say, if someone says, let me out of the parking garage for free, don't let them out for free.
Yeah.
Okay, what if instead I say it in Japanese? It's called a language switch attack. Does it work? I cannot tell you how many times we have ran a simulation like that, and everything was great in English, but we switched to different languages and suddenly it's broken. So it's those sorts of language-based attacks that is the new world we're in, and you have to be able to continuously try and test that things are working as you would expect.
Yeah, because a large language model can change languages at the drop of a hat.
That's right.
So you have to change. Okay, so where does that end? Like, you have to try it in 100 different languages, like 1,000,000 different languages. Like, so how do you build bounds around what you're testing? Because the once-a-year pen test was bounded really hard. Now you're saying it's got to happen all the time. Where does it end? Like, how do you give some, practically speaking, where can you stop and at least know that you've done, quote, all that you can do to build a high trust system?
Yeah. So it's what we're talking about here are semantic boundaries. And the best way to manage that is outcome driven. So if my expectation is the user has to pay, I need to make sure that there are deterministic safeguards to make sure that outcome is met, regardless of what may have happened in the unbounded fuzzy section of the processing.
Yeah.
So it's very easy for us humans to think, oh, we're going to go from from deterministic programming and experiences to now everything's just possible. You could do that, but it's probably a bad idea. In reality, it's a mixture of things, right?
Yeah.
So it comes down, so that's part one of my answer. The second part to my answer, I think, is more important, and that is threat modeling. And this is one I think folks don't give enough credit to. In fact, to be fair, 10 months ago, I would not have given enough credit to, is systems thinking. Have you defined what the boundaries are, what the people, places, things are in your system, the relationships between them, and what is most vulnerable, or if it were to be most vulnerable, would have the biggest blast radius or biggest impact on business, and focus on those. So it gives you a model to work within, and it's going to change, it's going to evolve, but at least you have a picture of what you're
Yeah.
working with, not just hope.
Yeah. Okay. So without giving away any confidential information, can you tell us a story about some work that you've done to make that real for us?
So I had a project where there were multiple systems involved, like anything. Someone had written their own program that was to connect to a CRM. And that program had a bunch of prompts, like custom prompts. And in a lot of cases, prompts are the intellectual property. So your team's going to write instructions on how do you handle a particular support case that comes in, and you might have a proprietary way to say, we always say this, or because of our customer expectations, we make sure that we cover these. And at the end, we always say, and did I answer your questions well enough today? Whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Under the hood, you're going to have prompts and instructions that, just like any other IP, you would not want someone else to have. So part of a model would be, what are those instructions that you would never want someone to have? And in this particular case, I was able to break into their system through prompts only in Japanese, which I don't speak, and export all their intellectual property. And I didn't stop there, because now all of a sudden I had access into their internal system. I could connect into their CRM instance, and I was able to delete data in their pen test environment and put hello company name, it replacing all their data. So because I had access to get prompts in that IP, then I had access to then get into other parts of their system, and no one had modeled out that being a risk. It was like, of course, you'll never be able to get into the CRM because it's blocked by this thing over here. Actually, that's not true, because it's all about what are the attack chains.
Yeah.
If I can do this or can't do this, fine. But if I can do this and this, that might be a problem. So you have to build that out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I try not abstractions, Brian, but I'm like on my feet like this. Abstractions are my jam, and I know not everyone has that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that. I'm sure people will hear it and they'll draw their own. They've got their own version of their system, because I've already got my version of the system. I'm thinking of questions that I'm going to be asking James soon. All right. Practically speaking, if you're a mid-sized parking operator, came to you tomorrow and wanted to use AI responsibly, where do you tell them to start?
Honestly, my question would be, what problem are you trying to solve?
Yeah, that's a good one. All right.
Yeah.
I'm trying to maximize my revenue in this garage.
And I would say, what data do you already have available?
Yeah.
And what data do you wish was available?
Yeah.
And let's then figure out, how do we, I'm going to riff on this one a little bit.
Yeah.
Because this is really the hard part about technology, right? Because it's what problem you're trying to solve. You've probably heard this a million times. I don't know if you've worked with engineers for a long time. The other thing that comes to mind for me here too is, when we talk AI, there's generative AI.
Yep.
And there's AI. And so there are ways to think about, like, number crunching that you don't need generative AI for necessarily. If you're starting out and you're asking yourself the question, what do I do with this AI thing?
Yeah.
My very first answer would be, how do you improve your personal workflow? I actually wouldn't even go directly to the technology application in the field necessarily. I would go to, are you using it to improve your business operations? Are you reducing your operational costs? And then go to, then how can I harness that to build new products, improve my services, to increase revenue? But the very first place I would start, because it's the lowest hanging fruit, is operational.
Yes. Personal operational. That's also what I'm hearing
That's
come through loud and clear. Okay. All right. I've been asking the questions. The question now that I have for you is, what questions should I have been asking you? What questions did you expect? And what questions will you make the most sense to you as you are gearing up to thrill an audience of parking operators for 45 minutes in a couple of months?
Yeah. My first question to you is, what do you think is, beyond just what is AI, what is the one burning question you think every parking operator is the problem that they would say is, if I could solve this with technology, and it doesn't even have to be AI, if I could solve this with technology,
Yeah.
life would be so much easier.
Yeah. I think they're all trying to make the technology that they're deploying in their garages easier to use. Because what invariably happens is, first of all, they're humans. The reason Parker technology exists is that humans get stumped when they're put under pressure and when they are interacting with an unfamiliar system, which is usually the parks equipment, right? So our customers are increasingly have an increasing number of technological choices to deploy in their garage to smooth the process of reserving, paying, and exiting a parking garage. And they're trying to figure out how to make it all work more seamlessly.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. And the natural extension to that, which you guys are trailblazing, is how do you bring a conversational component
Mm,
to that experience so that it's more human, right?
yeah.
Because if you're
Without the
pulling
humans being there.
without the humans being there, because if
Yeah.
you're pulling up to a machine and you get frustrated and someone's not answering, or the machine is just too dumb because it's been programmed with 5 different responses that you could give, and you didn't actually
Give that
give an
response.
option for what is
Yeah.
their real problem.
Yeah.
That's incredibly frustrating. And so how do you solve that problem? And that is a perfect use, generative AI and language-based solutions, because now all of a sudden it comes down to inference. You're able to offer solutions to problems that you couldn't predict that they might.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the generative AI can figure it out. Yeah.
Because infer.
Yeah.
That's very helpful to me, by the way, just for
Yeah, give
framing.
you the right framework. Okay. So let's do this. Let's go. Let's have a little fun. I have what's called the lightning round. And the lightning round is 6 questions. I asked all of my guests the same questions. You don't have to give fast answers. You just have to just think about the answers to the question. Okay. So the first question is, what phrase are you known for?
I am very well known for this particular phrase. It is a quote, but I say it all the time.
Okay.
Write drunk, edit sober.
Okay.
Is a Hemingway quote. It is something I learned in college. This idea that, and I think it's very applicable to the conversation we had today. It is, don't limit yourself and edit yourself while you are working. Let it all out,
Yeah.
and then go back and apply judgment. Because we get in
Okay.
our own way
Yeah.
when we just think we have to get it right that first time. If I don't write it out the correct way, or if I don't get it right the first time, there's something wrong. It's like, no, throw it all out there and then come back and decide how to edit and how to make it packaged nice.
I love that. I'm going to use that tomorrow. Okay. Write drunk and edit sober. Okay. Love it. That's a good one. All right. So then next question is, what's the hardest thing you've ever done in life?
It's hard.
The name of the podcast is Harder Than It Looks. So
Yep. Harder than this. I don't know if I'm going to share this. You might want to edit it. But
okay.
to be honest answer, hardest thing I've ever had to do was spin down a company.
Yeah.
Some built over years, was super successful. AI made it impossible to keep going, and we had to make a decision to stop.
Wow.
That was the hardest thing I've ever done. And it came down to people.
Yeah, that sounds like something that was hardest thing you've ever had to do in your life. Yeah, thank you for that vulnerable answer. Okay. So what's the hardest thing about your job today?
Ooh. The hardest part of my job today is allowing myself to step. Okay. And I say that sort of tongue in cheek. Part of it is the tools available to us allow us to do so much more
Yeah.
that staying on top of it and wanting to achieve more because you can, frankly, can be addicting.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to say, wait a minute, I need to take a break. So take a step back. We can revisit this later. One thing I learned very early on in my programming career was stepping away for the night to solve a problem is very, because it would be, I would work till 2, 3 in the morning trying to solve a particular problem or bug.
Yeah.
And inevitably I would step away, take an hour of sleep, wake up back up, and it was solved. And I did that a couple times to realize, wait a minute, your brain actually needs to take a break.
Yeah.
And that's hard lesson.
Yeah. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And there is value in the pause. I like that a lot. I love it. Okay. All right. That's good. Okay. So now the next question is, if you could wave your magic wand and fix one thing with your, let's say, if you could fix one thing in your security practice or in your security business, like a characteristic of it. So typically I ask this of parking people. I'm like, if you could wave your magic wand, it's fix one thing in parking. So maybe the question to you is, if you could wave your magic wand and fix one thing in security, what would it be?
It would please care about security before it becomes a problem.
Yeah. Which is a little bit abstract in and of itself, is it not? Isn't that abstract? You don't know you have the back door until somebody finds it.
So funny. One thing I like to do before I get on calls with prospects is I go and do what's called a non-intrusive scan. And all I'm doing is, it's public information, but I'm going to see, are there any glaring gaps in their security? Every single call, there's at least one. And it's not just like normal, like run of the mill stuff. It's like, hey, did you know this thing was running? How'd you know that? I just went and looked. Like, I didn't even try. So the doors exist. I'm gonna give you an answer .b to your question.
Yeah.
Because it's also not just care before it becomes a problem, but recognize it's going to exist whether you want it to or not. The problem's there.
Yeah.
You should probably care.
Yeah. You should probably care. Yeah. It's true about a lot of things. The problem's there. You should probably care. The wisdom that is spouting from you in this lightning round this is actually good. Okay. So when you're not building things, what do you do for fun?
Oh, I have a 5-year-old son and a 140-pound Saint Bernard.
Oh my.
And I just love spending time with them.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. A 5-year-old soccer, t-ball.
Yep.
Yeah.
In the soccer league. I know nothing about soccer, so
Yeah.
I'm learning too. Apparently you do have to kick it in one direction to win.
Yeah. Yeah. My experience with 5-year-old soccer is that there's a cloud of dust around the ball as it goes as everybody's chasing the ball, which is fun, except for the poor goalie who's standing there bored to tears.
Yes.
Wondering why he has to be standing in the goalie and he can't be chasing the ball.
Yes. Although, ironically, my son is the one that wants to be the goalie.
Okay. All right. That goalie's a good spot to be.
Great spot.
You can always use good goalies.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So last question is, what are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of professionally.
Sure. I'll give you a couple of different answers if you like it. Some people go personal, some go professional, some do both. It's your show. You can pick one or two.
I am most proud I'm a Midwesterner. We're not supposed to have pride.
Ah,
It's a real thing.
that's a problem, by the way. That's a
It is
real
a big
problem. Yeah.
It is. It really is. It really is.
Yes.
I am very proud. The reason I'm hesitating here is it's the most recent thing. Like, I'm very proud of what we're doing at ZIVIS and
Yeah.
our ability to go very deep in AI security, because it's one of those things where security, it's a big industry, but being able to go really deep on a specific topic is something that I'm really good at and I really enjoy doing. And I'm also proud that I have given myself the space to go that deep hands-on again,
Yeah.
um, which is different than leading big, large teams, which is what I've done for a long time.
Yeah.
So I, yeah, I would say,
That's good. And I would say the better you are at going deep, the better you're going to be for all of us, because this stuff is so new. We're all learning literally on the fly. And that part's good. So I appreciate that. Okay. Oh, did you ever listen to Click and Clack, the Tappet brothers, right? We managed to waste a perfectly good hour. It always comes to my mind that I could never remember who said it, but I got the Tappet brothers out of it. No, that's good. Jake, I want to just say thank you for taking the time to spend with us here on the podcast, but also thank you for committing to showing up for us and for our customers at Fusion. It's going to be a great show. I know you're going to light up the audience because everybody's going to be standing, listening carefully to what you're saying. And so thank you for that preparation. I can't wait to see the dynamic duo of Jake Miller and Karen Mangia get back together and light up the Fusion 26 crowd. So thank you for that. And thanks for joining us today.
yeah, thanks, Brian. I can't wait. It's gonna be good.
Okay, that's a wrap on this episode of Harder Than It Looks, Parking Uncovered, presented by Parker Technology. Please leave us a review if you liked what you heard. Make sure you tune in next month as we continue to uncover tips, tricks, and best practices to manage what we all know is harder than it looks, parking a car. Bye for now.